Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good.
Good. That's good to hear. Before we get started, I want to just take a moment to thank each and every one of you all who came out here tonight to hear me speak. Although it isn't Juneteenth quite yet, we need to use tonight as somewhat of a pregame. And we want to get ready to celebrate for tomorrow. Speaking of Juneteenth, I feel the need to say a few things I think everyone needs to hear about this holiday. We have been stripped of our culture and given things as token gestures. And Juneteenth is one of those things. And yes, we did indeed fight for it, but it isn't the repayment that we need. We celebrate Juneteenth because we have to have some form of culture. But we must capitalize on using this holiday, and we need to stop allowing groups that are not our own from profiting off of our holiday. It's a great time for us to use this opportunity to get paid. The topic of the speech for today is everything reparations, what it looks like and how we get it. There will be a lot for us to cover in this loaded topic, so be sure to grab yourself some refreshments, snacks over there, and maybe grab a pen and paper if you need to take notes on some of the things that I'm going to be talking about tonight. I also have a few ground rules for you all tonight that I would need for you to follow for me. I will have to ask for your silence for the entirety of the presentation. Say any comments, concerns, questions, or anything else that you have for me until the end of the speech, and then I will make sure I get to them. The Everything Reparations speech will give you a base level understanding of strategies around reparations. If you're looking for a surgical analysis or something that's going to go super into detail in 30 minutes worth of me talking, you'll be disappointed. I'm not going to lie. But don't be totally disappointed because you still will learn a lot tonight. You are still going to be able to get a lot of information that you can take and research later on. The last thing that I will tell you before we get started is that if you're not used to my style and don't know me too well, I'm not the type of guy that's going to pull punches, and I'm not the type to beat around the bush. So be prepared for a raw yet informative speech. I first want to tell you a little bit about who I am, if you do not know me. My name is Nicholas Jordan, and I will be your sole presenter for today. I'm an author of 2 books. I brought a few copies of my second book with me tonight, which was released May of this year. And it's called the Pro-Black Blurred Series, Exposing Anti-Black Media Tropes the Blurred Way, where I break down anti-Black media tropes, and I also share some of my own experiences with racism. I also teach you how to find anti-Blackness in the media that you watch as well, too. On top of being an author, I'm an activist, I'm a comic book creator, I'm a pro-Black media analyst, I'm a speaker, and I'm the creator of the Cool Colas brand. I'm also a civil rights investigator with nearly a decade's worth of experience, and my primary focus is to be an advocate for Black empowerment and pro-Blackness. I want to start off by telling you what the definition of reparations is. Reparations is a form of repayment for a systematic harm that was done to a specific group of people. Assuming that everyone here is a reparations supporter or wants to become one, I want to give you a little bit of game. I recently read the book From Here to Equality by William Darity and Kirsten Mullen. In this text, they define the 4 components that we all should look at as reparationists. This includes who should receive reparations, who should pay reparations, how we should receive reparations, and how much the reparations package should amount to. Let's start off by talking about who should receive reparations. Reparations in America should be lineage-based, not race-based, lineage-based. In terms of lineage, reparations in America should only be distributed to the cultural group that is known as foundational Black Americans or Black American freedmen, whichever term you prefer. They're pretty much the same thing. Who here knows what a foundational Black American is?
I do.
You do? Cool. For those of you all who have never heard of this term, a foundational Black American refers to a Black person who has a lineage that is native to American soil. Some of you are probably wondering if this is even important, and I'm here to tell you that it is very much so important, and here is why. We need to learn how to properly delineate because that's key to how we stay organized when securing our reparations package. Now let's talk about what we need to do to have our identities together before we start trying to claim our checks. We need to drop labels such as African American, people of color, and any other disrespectful title that people who are not of our lineage or part of some strange cult-like group try to call us. For example, using African American will allow other cultural groups who are not foundational Black Americans to capitalize on what is ours by claiming to be a part of our culture. So for example, a first-generation African who was born in America may attempt to use that as if we are of the same cultural group when we are not, in order for them to get reparations. African American does not specify a race. African is actually just a nationality. And based on that logic, celebrities such as Charlize Theron, Elon Musk, and other white South African natives like them could use this to credibly try to latch onto the reparations movement. Speaking of whites, you ever notice that you never see Anglo-whites ever refer to themselves as European Americans, although their lineage goes back to European colonization? The reason why this is problematic is because it makes us seem like we're guests in a land that our ancestors built by slave labor. Number two, we need to create a task force that will fight to create either foundational Black American or Black American freedmen as a cultural group on the census that we can check off. Number three, we need to be able to trace our lineage back to the 1870 census. Those whose parents go back to the 1870 census as a bare minimum can prove that they are indeed a foundational Black American. And this rules out any possibility for any Black immigrants to try to falsely claim this lineage as well. Number four, we must also set a rule that says that you have to have claimed Black as your race on the census and on different forms of ID for the last 12 years in order to qualify for reparations. This will rule out any non-Blacks who will try to make claims and say that they have a Black family member on a technicality, knowing damn well that their Black ancestors were just slaves being raped by their European ancestors. The last thing that I need you to remember is that delineation is not othering. Delineation is also not divisive. We should stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters from the diaspora, from the Caribbeans, and from Africa when they stand in solidarity with us. We support Caribbeans in their CARICOM reparations movement, which we're not included in, and we really ain't mad about it. Some of us don't even know about it. But what we are asking is for the same respect back. We are asking for them to be good allies when they are here in America amongst us. When it comes to reparations, we also have to talk about who should pay it out to us. So let me ask you all, who do you think should pay us reparations specifically?
The government.
There you go. She got it. She got it. The answer to this is obviously the federal government. But don't get me wrong, the state, the county, the local governments, they owe us too. But I want to put a focus on the federal government. They are more than capable and have the resources to give us our money. The government is not just responsible for paying reparations because of the things that they've done. They're also responsible because of the things that they did not do. So yes, they have had a federally funded interstate construction system that built railroads in major cities with Black business districts nationally. And yes, they had the Homestead Act that allowed whites to get land grants while Blacks were deprived of their 40 acres and a mule. And yes, they had a bloodlust period where white terrorists took hundreds of Black lives and seized their property between the Civil War and World War II. But they also had benign neglect, which is how I get to the inactivity. As a refresher, if you did not see the last speech, benign neglect was coined by a man named Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and he was an advisor to the Richard Nixon administration, and he did this as a response to dealing with racial tensions and uprisings by pro-black groups. So in other words, what he basically said was, in order for us to deal with racial tension, we're going to not deal with it whatsoever. So in other words, it means that there's an attitude and a policy that's implemented that the practice of ignoring the repayment of racial justices is a solution to injustice. If they could ignore us long enough by putting their attention towards other groups, then they could use the excuse that too much time has passed and we need to just move on with a clean slate. That sounds pretty bad though, right? Well, this was something that everyone's so-called social justice hero, Jane Elliott, as you see pictured right there, also said to the faces of two black men. She's as liberal as they come, and she has this type of view, believe it or not. After hearing that, would you invite her to the cookout? Anyway, they found a way to give $175 billion to Ukraine. They gave billions to Native Americans annually. They gave $4.13 billion to Guamanians. They found a way to give $20,000 to Japanese Americans. They always find a way to give money to all these other groups, and we haven't got a dime. But what you probably didn't know is that America is a monetary sovereignty. Does anybody here know what a monetary sovereignty is?
Overabundance of money.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. A monetary sovereignty means the American government sets the rules for how monetary laws are used in the nation. They can never run out of money, and they can never not afford to pay a bill. Consider that they never raise our tax funds when they have military pursuits, bailing out banks, which was about $29 trillion, by the way, if you didn't know, bailing out the auto industry, and bailing out the airline industry. They say that this is supposed to be a way for them to try to show how if we have reparations, that we're going to have a problem with the taxes being raised. But if you look at some of the other instances of what they've done in the past, it shows that the taxes never raised whenever they wanted to do the things that they wanted to do. The other thing that it also does too is that it gives the taxpayers, those who would actually vote for reparations, an excuse to also not want to advocate for it, therefore challenging their integrity and scaring them into not wanting to help us. One of the biggest conversations around reparations is what it would look like, and I'm here to tell you that we are owed a whole lot. But to start off, we need to search for reparations in the form of cash. The reason why we ask for this is because we want to avoid the money being trick bagged and having all of these random fine print rules that are attached. Cash payments makes it so that there are no strings attached though. I believe we should specifically receive them as cash bonds as a matter of fact. This could be most effective as it would still function as an asset building mechanism that would not be impacted by inflation and could take the form of liquid assets. The problem with asking only for land or for too much all at once is that it will devalue the amount of money that we will receive in the long run that we can use freely. They will attempt to put taxes or other restrictions on what is owed to us and turn it into a benefit for them in some way. Cash allows us to do what we need to do and make small investments to avoid becoming a permanent underclass. When calculating the number that we're owed, it can be generated through two potential strategies. One approach involves enumerating the atrocities that have been done to foundational Black Americans and assigning a dollar value to each atrocity and then adding them up. The second and more practical approach would be to analyze the racial wealth gap that has occurred between black families and white families in America over time. Citigroup did a study recently showing that in the year 2000 alone, the GDP of the United States dropped 16 trillion in revenue. This breakdown includes 13 trillion lost in potential business revenue because of discriminatory lending to foundational Black American entrepreneurs, with an estimated 6.1 million jobs not generated as a result. 2.7 trillion in income lost because of disparities in wages suffered by foundational Black Americans. 219 billion lost because of discrimination in providing housing credit after 2 decades. And 90 billion to 113 billion in lifetime income lost from discrimination in accessing higher education. Use your imagination to surmise how much more could have been lost even before then. HR 40 has done an assessment and a study on reparations to discuss the damages, but unfortunately, that is all HR 40 is, a study, not a demand. Anyway, as of right now, many pro-Black reparationist scholars are suggesting that we should be asking the United States government to be giving us funds for up to 70 trillion as a bare minimum. But I guarantee that as we dig up more, the more time goes by, the more money that is not paid to us, the higher that price will go up. I need to get something off my chest, y'all. I get sick and tired of conversations with people who will plebiscite babble about random theories on how reparations should go. We need to start off by breaking down what reparations is not and some myths around it. Let's start with the first one that we have here on the list. Reparations are not education vouchers. It is insulting to tell a lineage of people whose families have been oppressed, murdered, and stolen from that their repayment should be in the form of having free or partially free schooling from the same education system that is controlled by white supremacists. This is also the same education system that fails to teach us our true history as well. And it puts us in the negatives with more debt as we get loans. Consider also that we as a group go in with practically no wealth already and have no way to compete with our non-Black counterparts as a group when we come out. The second myth is that reparations are a free handout. This is grossly untrue and is disrespectful as hell. It is a form of debt repayment. It's overdue, and we are demanding what we should have been given a long time ago, plus tax. The same way that these predatory institutions ask you to repay student loans with interest. And some may say they provided a service by giving us education. Well, the service my ancestors provided was free slave labor. The next one that we have here is Black people are just going to waste the money. The reality is foundational Black Americans can do absolutely whatever the hell they want to do with their money. So if Cousin Pookie wants to buy Jordans, which I know is everybody's favorite dog whistle to use against Black society, then that's his business. There should not be a psychological or financial savvy evaluation that is used to determine whether or not we deserve to get money that is already owed to us. Also, every group has their low brow. Let's not forget that. But when you consider how we've overcome the odds while being subjugated, you can't overlook the amount of us who will do something highly constructive for society. Black Wall Street is an example of this. During Jim Crow segregation, we built up Black Wall Streets nationwide after being subjugated, and we still have been successful, despite white supremacists feeling the need to destroy them. And we probably would have been more successful had they not destroyed them. There are too many of us with brilliant one-coat mindsets that will build something spectacular for society. If the dominant society thought we were going to waste it and give it back, then they would have gave it to us already. Now let's look at the next myth here. This is supposed to stop racism or its repayment or racism. Reparations is not a cure for racism, y'all. It's a debt that is owed, plain and simple. That's really all it is. We should do something constructive, yes, but it's not supposed to be for us to be social justice warriors. It also would mean that buffer groups such as non-foundational Black Americans, East Indians, Asians, and other non-Black cultural groups and racial groups would also be able to capitalize this on as well too. It also undermines those with ancestral lineage that goes back to slavery by saying they deserve the same benefits as those who were just in indentured servitude. The next myth that we have here is that Black people just need to learn financial literacy. This is some low-key pull yourself up by your bootstraps talking point BS. And it needs to be abolished, straight up. Yes, we should get our hustle on. And yes, we should do things to better ourselves financially and make money helping others in society. Learning financial literacy is important to do in addition to reparations, but not as an alternative to reparations. The amount of wealth that Black society has been deprived of and was stolen from has caused too big of a deficit to close the racial wealth gap, allowing us to compete with our non-Black counterparts. We need this repayment to thrive. And you see examples all the time of individual Black people here or there who are great success and they end up getting a lot of money. And what society loves to do is to browbeat others in the Black community because they don't measure up to how that one individual was when he became or she became successful. What you don't see is that there is a communal aspect missing at the end of the day. In other words, you could be a financial success on your own accord all day. But what good does it do if you have no desire or see no value in empowering Black society with what you got? And here's another myth. They will never give it to us. I hate this one, y'all. I really, really hate this one. Stay away from defeatist Negroes. One of the reasons that the reparations movement is moving slower than it should is because of this negative talk that I hear quite often. There was a time where we didn't think we'd become economically independent of the dominant society during segregation. But it happened, and the proof is in Black Wall Street. There was a time that Blacks didn't think they'd be able to free themselves from colonization, and it happened. There was a time where Blacks didn't think they'd be able to purchase real estate, marry each other, and read, but it happened. There was a time where we didn't think that we had a Black president, and although he is a joke, he's a Sambo, and he is a token, I'm just being honest, it still happened. It still happened and it counts. But just like anything in life, nothing will happen if you choose to do nothing about it. Now let's look at our last talking point here, or myth. It doesn't benefit white people. The reality is that the what's in it for me conversation shouldn't even be happening. But since it is, let's talk about it. Black people have always been known for their incredible buying power. Giving Black people reparations will stabilize the economy for everyone. We will pour money back into other businesses that are not even Black. The spotlight will get put on how much we will control and keep the money to ourselves when it's actually not in our spirit to be selfish like that. The white supremacists fear that we will behave in the same way that they have behaved with us. But again, it's not in our nature. As I stated earlier, being deprived of our ability to help innovate society has come to the financial detriment of society. Now that we have gone through the ins and outs of reparations, let's talk about how you can get involved and what you can do about it. Number one, stop voting for candidates just because they are of a certain party or you are getting bullied. You all have to start becoming policy-based voters. Does the politician you support have a policy that is exclusive to foundational Black Americans, or did someone bully you into voting? We don't have time to play. If there is no policy for Blacks, there is no vote. Point blank, period. Sit this one out. I need to keep it 100 with you all, by the way. Everyone always talks about the importance of voting because our ancestors died for the right to do so. That's a straw man argument, and it's used to make you submissive, like many of your damn parents. Our ancestors died for our right to use voting as a vehicle to gain tangibles for Black society and its descendants, and we need to honor that sacrifice. The second thing that we can do, if you have a strong political campaign, run for office yourself, especially if you aren't impressed with what you see. We can't just sit out in voting and then do nothing after that. Running a reparations campaign has been done before, and it is currently being done right now. Just look at brothers like Greg Marcel Dixon, who you see pictured right here. This brother is running to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in South Carolina's 6th District, and he has a strong reparations campaign. This is a brother that I respect and have connected with on a few occasions, and he aims to be the example we need to see when it comes to getting tangibles for blacks. And the reality is we need more of this to get folks talking about reparations overall. If you don't want to run for office, and this is point number 3 for y'all, get involved with politicians who are doing plausible reparations campaigns and are doing great things. Assist them by mailing flyers, fund their campaigns, vote for them, get the word out about what they're doing, tell people about how great they are. And the last thing is attend reparations task force meetings in your state and make your voice heard. Bring your ideas to the table. And be sure to vet a reparations task force that you attend as well too. We are not created equal. That's the bottom line. If they don't follow this criteria or close to what I presented to you today, you're probably in the wrong place. If it isn't present, make your own. Before we conclude all of this, I just wanted to say one last thing. When it comes to being a reparations community, having community is important. You have to connect with the like-minded. I was in DC this past weekend, by the way, and I was among hundreds of foundational Black Americans at Freedom Plaza for the reparations rally. We all came together to listen to an array of powerful speakers who spoke vehemently about why reparations is paramount. A movement that once barely had any traction is now a topic of interest for hundreds of people who came all across the nation and the United States to stand for reparations. And this could be you too. Now we're at the end. Do you all have any questions for me?